In the summer of 2006, Lester Rouse was involved in a serious motorcycle accident. It left him in a wheelchair. Sandra, his pregnant wife, trying to take care of him. It began to take a toll on Sandra's pregnancy. Just 27 weeks along, Sandra had to have an emergency cesarean section, bringing little Andrew Rouse into the world.
The day I delivered, it was really kind of a weird normal for us because my husband had a hospital bed in our living room, and our oldest son, who was 15 at the time, Andrew was a surprise baby. He was a miracle baby, but he's also a surprise baby. So we already had a 15-year-old. His name is Shelton, and he was at school, and he had actually called me and asked me could he stay over because he needed to make up work because he had missed a lot because of Lester's accident. And I was like, yeah, go ahead and I'll come pick you up. And just within 30 minutes after that, I had discovered that I had massive blood clots and was, bleeding immensely. And we called 911.
Sandra had Andrew in Alma, more than 2 hours from Savannah. As she recovered, Memorial Health's neonatal transport team brought little Andrew to Savannah.
I do remember that they wheeled him in there in their transport, it was the incubator transport thing. And so I got to see him. That was the only time I couldn't touch him, so.
His whole hand was the size of my thumbnail.
Yeah, he was so
His whole hand.
Tiny, tiny, tiny.
Sandra, still in the hospital in Alma, heard from family in Savannah with Andrew.
Tuesday, we got the phone call from my sister-in-law, and she said, I don't know what's going on because they won't let us know, but you need to call up here. And so we made the telephone call and talked to one of the doctors, and it wasn't good.
Andrew was a very tiny baby. He was born almost 3 months early. He only weighed about 2 pounds. That means that his lungs were very immature, so he required the ventilator to breathe for him for many weeks. During that time, because he was so unstable, he also unfortunately suffered an intracranial hemorrhage. He actually had bleeding into the space around his brain, which ultimately required shunt placement.
The next day was a Wednesday, and that was going to be the day that court date for the person who hit him. And we decided, look, that's not even a concern now. So Shelton, who was 15, he had his driver's license 2 weeks when his dad had the accident. Shelton drove him to Savannah, and so they could be here with Andrew.
Dr. Willard Thompson, pediatric neurosurgeon, remembers the first time he saw Andrew in the neonatal intensive care nursery.
He was a premature infant, and I was consulted, I think, when he was several weeks old after he had developed an intraventricular hemorrhage of the brain. And typically, those babies can develop hydrocephalus, which is too much fluid on the brain, and need a pediatric neurosurgical intervention.
Andrew, while he was here, he went through probably a little bit more than most neonatal babies. So he had, all premature babies have ups and downs. So the NICU is a roller coaster. But his was, I guess, the ultimate ride, if you could say. He had, when we finally had the discussion, after about a week or so, of him being here, we sat down with the doctor, and I had no clue. I had no clue that a 27-week baby would even survive. So I thought he was doing good.
ROP, retinopathy of prematurity, PDA, patient ductus arteriosus, and IVH, intraventricular hemorrhage, bilateral. Andrew's was grade 3. The worst is grade 4. The bilateral, he was bleeding on both sides of his brain.
Over the 5 years of Andrew's life thus far, we've got to know each other very well because of the need of multiple surgeries. He did develop hydrocephalus and require a ventricular reservoir for temporary spinal fluid diversion, and then he underwent a ventricular peritoneal shunt for more permanent treatment for hydrocephalus.
Andrew's problems did not stop there.
But he developed staph. He got a staph infection, and he actually became septic. So at one point, one of the doctors, she said that Andrew had a 75% chance of suffering an event that he wouldn't be able to make it through that night, that he could possibly suffer an event that he would not be able to recover.
Sandra and Lester got ready to take tiny Andrew home, but Dr. Thompson took one last look and changed those plans. Andrew needed another surgery, another shunt, and another week in the hospital. Finally, a few days before Christmas, the Rouses could bring Andrew home.
Which we wasn't even ready. We didn't have Andrew's room ready. We still had 3 months, and we actually didn't even have the name Andrew picked out yet. So he came here with no first name. They called him Little Lester because we knew Lester was going to be his middle name, because that's our oldest son, Shelton Lester, and then he was Emery Lester, so he was going to have Lester as his middle name, so they called him Little Lester, and some of the nurses called him LL. We were home probably 24 hours, and there was just something wrong. There was something wrong. We got on the phone, and those people got on the phone, and then we got a phone call back that said, okay, take him to this ER, and this is what we're going to do.
They took Andrew back to Memorial and did more CAT scans. They found a second staph infection. Little Andrew was in and out of the hospital for the first 6 months of his young life.
The staff, the nurses, are his extended family.
Well, taking care of Andrew has been a very special experience for me because I took care of him when he was a preemie in the unit. Then later, I transferred here to the pediatric intensive care unit, and now I'm on the sedation team. So in all of those areas, I have gotten to care for Andrew and seen him grow up into the darling little boy that he is now.
How is Andrew today?
He's doing good. His last surgery was in January. We had just went through another series of shunt revisions, and
4 months.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
August, September, October, yeah. We were in and out of the hospital from August until January. And we bring him here every week for PT and OT and speech. So he comes to Bacchus every week for that. So, and it's worth the 3 hour.
It's worth the 3. It's that big of a difference between living in a small town and what kind of services they offer there, and then the services that they offer here, and the quality of the service, and all of the ladies that are over there. It's the difference between night and day.
Andrew Rouse, a true miracle child.
Andrew Andrew is a true miracle child.
The Lord has really blessed us.